Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello.
And I was going full professional background today.
Yeah. It's really terrible because I have the mirroring setting on my computer. I mean, it's the default on Zoom, so I see the background mirrored, and it's really, it's weird because it seems off. So I flipped all the images, and then I was testing it on a call and said, "Your background is mirrored." No, it is not.
Fantastic. Awesome. So I'm not sure. Jav may jump in, but here we go. Extra people. Awesome. So Scubbit, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. I have a few items to demo. These are things I kind of wanted to show off last week, but time. So I'm actually going to start with item number 2, just because I already have those tabs open. So console, we're missing dashboards, and this is a relatively critical service. All of our any service that requires access to our database, our Postgres database, relies on console for service discovery, for determining who the master is and for determining who the secondaries for the database are. That way we request writes and reads to the correct database systems. So like console is pretty decently important. The fact that we don't have dashboards for it is kind of concerning. So I decided that we should finally do something about it. So I have a merge request open. I'm hoping Andrew will eventually get time to look at it. But not all the dashboards are going to currently work, just because we have a mixture of where data is being gathered from and where that data is actually important. So we have our cluster, our 5 nodes that run console as a server that our clients all kind of link up to advertise their services. There's 5 of those as virtual machines sitting around. So like some of the stuff should have data, but I don't know why it's not showing up. So that'll be something that I'm hoping Andrew could help me address in the merge request. And there's also certain data that just doesn't make sense to have. I'll get to that in a second, but like we do have data coming in from all of our agents that are running inside of Kubernetes. So, we've got how much CPU that we're consuming, which is kind of cool. And also the amount of memory that we're consuming. It is very interesting that we appear to be using a lot of CPU, but we need to go back to account for how many nodes we're running inside of production. And we run a lot of nodes. So while we only request a fraction of CPU, it adds up depending on how many nodes that we're actually consuming or running inside of our clusters. The one thing that I do have missing in this merge request is our SLI related detail, because currently I don't know what metrics are important for determining this information. Console is not a service where you have a request rate that's important. It's actually whether the service is available. But at that point, you're monitoring the individual service behind console. So it's going to be more like, is the cluster of console itself healthy? And I don't know which metrics actually give me that information. There's plenty of metrics available that discuss that. But in order for me to determine how to write the appropriate queries to determine whether a cluster is healthy or not, I would need to build up my own cluster and then kind of put it into an unhealthy state just to figure out what those metrics actually do and represent in order to figure out how to make that work inside of our dashboards. The other problem I was having was just my knowledge with JSONet, like this active replica set. I should be able to get this chart to work along with this section over here, but I can't because I don't know how to write an if statement in JSONet. I tried. I was very unsuccessful in troubleshooting, not a stack trace, but troubleshooting a compilation failure in JSON is not easy yet to me. So again, stuff like RPS, which doesn't make sense. We obviously don't have data for. Saturation, we have no data for, which we kind of should. I think the only thing that we see is this open file descriptors, which is specific to our nodes, not Kubernetes. But like we do have node level metrics because we do have 5 servers as virtual machines. And then if we go down, we get the same kind of stuff I kind of showcased already, where we get our Kubernetes related information as well. And then my merge request also includes some changes to the service definition. So stuff like the CPU utilization, we'll start gathering that after that merge request gets pushed into place. So we have dashboards coming. It's an open merge request.
Nice, that's great progress.
Item number 2.
Is
so
that
before I
something?
move on,
should we have this on our roadmap to be migrating stuff? You mentioned there we're running some VMs. Is this something that at some point should all be in Kubernetes?
In the future, yes. I think Consul is a decent service to have in Kubernetes just because of its clustering capabilities, but I have not looked into it myself yet. Just due to the fact that we've got enough work to do. So I think it should be on the roadmap for the future. When we do it, I don't know.
Okay.
Skarbek, regarding your question about detecting healthy state of the cluster itself, maybe you should take a look at the raft. So basically a console_raft something, you should be able to see the leader and the peers and make some assumption based on those numbers, because how we configure the cluster, so the majority model and things like that. So it kind of gives you an idea. Because on the other aspect, an unhealthy peer should be detected as a service, if I remember correctly, because basically every console node is part of the service catalog, and if it's unhealthy by its own definition, it just appears there as unhealthy. But as a cluster level, knowing if the cluster is working, it depends on the presence of the right number of master leaders. Actually, just leaders, right?
Yeah, there's a few things I could take away from when I was exploring metrics. Is one, the console itself has its own service inside of console, which that sounds bizarre, but it makes sense because console itself is registering itself, and then all of the servers that run as part of the cluster register itself into that service as well. So if the service is healthy,
because it's a key value storage. If you want to reach the key value storage, there's a service definition for it.
Precisely. So one would think that if the service is healthy, console, the cluster itself should be healthy. What I wanted to try to do was figure out if the cluster is healthy, I should see 5 nodes because we've got 5 servers participating. What I couldn't figure out is what happens if one of the nodes dies. And I couldn't figure that part out because I would signal, hey, that's an unhealthy cluster despite it working. It just means there's a problem that we should investigate. Let's alert somebody because we don't want console to completely go down, that kind of thing.
Do we have one master out of 5 nodes? Because I was looking at the metrics and it shows one leader.
So that's something I was actually confused about because there is a leader metric of some sort. But when I queried the cluster or when I queried the metrics, all of them showed up as a leader. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense to me. I thought only one was supposed to show up as a leader. So I think I was either looking at something wrong or I need to refine the queries. But I'm like, at this point, I'll save that for a future iteration. I'm just going to concentrate on this merge request because this is better than anything else we have, which is 0 currently. So
yeah.
Okay, so let's look at Nginx real quick because that's the other one that is merged. And I know those dashboards are in a nice, fun state. Capacity, this one takes forever to load. But we have our Nginx controllers, and we got our container details. So we have the CPU usage of all the containers and their standard deviations, and as well for memory. And we also have the fact that we've got the waiting reasons and terminations. So we can see that we're scaling on a regular basis. That's kind of cool. Same deal for the actual deployments. So we know how much CPU, memory, and network traffic is happening through each one of our individual clusters. We do have error ratios. We don't have SLIs attached to these yet because our errors are kind of high, which is kind of surprising, but I have not really dug into this very much yet. I'm just trying to get data out there available so that we could look into it. I did find some interesting metrics I thought were important. So I went ahead and add dashboards for those items, just total connections and connections by state. There was actually a fun, during one incident, this chart looked kind of fun, but I don't remember what day it was. So I don't want to sit here and search for it, but bless you. And then same deal, our pod metrics have fun data, which is kind of cool. So we could see how many active replicas are operating across our cluster, which is cool. So, we got some pretty cool stuff. Oh, the other thing I wanted to show was inside the original detail, we got this nifty link here that goes to Stackdriver, because this is where our error logs are being sent to. We decided to just ignore our access log details. So you can see we're kind of dominated by the fact that we're buffering temporary files. This is normal behavior, so I'm not really sure why this shows up as an error or a warning severity, error severity. But if we do a quick filter of not that, we should be able to get down to the very important stuff. Okay, don't filter that out. Let's just get rid of this. Do I need and? No, just not. Yeah, so in production, I'm expecting to see something related to our web showing up somewhere because we haven't deployed web. Am I in production? I am in production. I don't quickly see it, but another item that we see a lot is the fact that we don't have TLS configured, which is a perfectly fine error that we could ignore. But oh, here it is. Service web doesn't exist. So we're getting error logs, which is our primary goal of increasing our Nginx observability. So I'm happy with where that stands as of right now.
Awesome. Did you just go with the error logs in the end for Nginx?
Yeah, so access logs, there's two problems that I see that are leading towards us not wanting to try to consume those is one, or I guess a few things. One, they're going to be kind of redundant with our HA proxy logs. The only difference that we're going to see is which backend takes care of which request. HA proxy provides us that to the Nginx ingress, which is always going to be the same across all endpoints. Nginx is going to be like, oh, this request is going to go to the web deployment, or this request is going to go to the API deployment. That's about the only important information I see out of that data. Another item that's problematic is that Nginx, we don't currently have a method to filter out secret data that gets logged by Nginx. So because of that, that kind of puts us in a higher situation of exposing data to the wrong engineers. That's kind of lower priority because only certain people have access to the production data anyways in the GCP console. But I don't want to deal with that from a security perspective in general. So I'm just like, screw it. And two, there's just going to be a large volume of data. I think HA proxy, we spend nearly $2,000 to $3,000 a month just storing and querying that data. We'd essentially be doubling that amount if we did the same thing for Nginx. So because of the other two items, I don't deem the cost of it worthwhile. So, and plus we've been dealing with this for the last 2+ years. So why bother? So I'm going to leave it that way. If we have an incident where looking at Nginx logs are more important, I guess we'll tackle it then. But at this point, I updated our run book to comment that we're not doing this because of X, Y, and Z. So we know it's a known fact at this moment in time.
Awesome. Yeah, sounds good. Nice. Great progress. Good to have visibility of both of those things. So awesome.
Something else we could potentially demo. Should we showcase the fact that web works in staging?
Oh, yes, please.
With
Yeah,
Kubernetes
that is
traffic?
super. Yeah.
Okay, let me get set up real quick. Because Graham merged that chef change yesterday, which is kind of exciting. We're one step closer. Whoops. And then I need, come on, Bana. I hate Kibana. Oh, wrong. Crap. Start over. So in here, obviously I just want to look at the web requests. And then I want to make sure I filter for only Kubernetes data. So we'll just add you. Edit filter exists. Whoops. And then where is, I'll showcase my IP address just to prove that things are working. So staging, I don't know if I'm logged in, not. So just navigating a boot, show me some data. And we should start seeing my IP address show up in these logs at some point in time. But I'm pretty happy that this web traffic is coming through nicely. And QA is passing, which is the important part.
Yes, exactly. That's awesome. Really good. Yeah, and deployments have been super smooth today. So that's a huge milestone.
Where's my IP address, dude? What's the health control? I don't care about the health controller. Actually, is my username Scarbeck? Yeah, it is. Ugh. Oh, I need and. I hate Kibana. Just why do we have to have 15 ways to query things? I have to learn Kibana QL, boom. There we go. Kibana QL, prom QL, BigQuery has its own syntax, SQL. Can we just agree on a standard for databases? So yeah, web traffic is definitely going to our Kubernetes nodes, which I'm pretty stoked about. So
Awesome.
I think the next step that we need to accomplish is there's a configuration file that Graham did not yet audit. So I'm going to try to do that today. And then we could start knocking out some of the other issues like the readiness reviews and stuff that are currently not yet scheduled.
Sounds good. What are you thinking in terms of moving into Canary? Like, do you want to get all of the readiness reviews things done? Or
Listen, last time we were doing the API migration, I was wrong every single time. I was like, oh yeah, this week. And then the next week happened. Next week.
Yeah. So
I'm not going to say that this time.
Not in terms of timing, like not going to hold you to a day, but I mean in terms of like, do you want to get like, are we going to try and get like a small bit of traffic on Canary and then get the readiness reviews signed off? Or do you want to get all those things wrapped up and approved before we put any traffic on Canary?
I think it's fine that we push traffic to Canary just because we could easily turn it off or scale it down via weights. So I think it'd be fine to work on the Canary portion and the readiness reviews and other stuff all at the same time. I do want to make sure that we audit the configurations prior to sending traffic to it.
Yes, exactly. We'll need to do that as well as we go along because there is a reasonable chance that we'll get new chef changes coming in that won't be like if anyone changes stuff in the next few weeks, it's not guaranteed that they'll do it in both places.
Is there any specific chef change you're aware of, or
I know Graham mentioned that he saw one that was only in chef, so that was the thing I think that made him aware that we will need to watch for this. So he started shouting, but we might want to just it's probably fine in Canary, but at some point before we go fully into production, we should just do another quick order.
The only thing that I know of that recently was made as a change in chef that we cannot take over into Kubernetes is due to a chart configuration. It's just not available in our Helm chart yet.
I see. Okay.
Alejandro is working on this, and there's an open merge request to get that
Great.
merged into our charts.
Okay, great.
I don't know the issue associated with it or anything, but I did see that flying by.
Fine.
I'm not
Okay,
worried
great.
about that because that was something that's very new that was introduced to our infrastructure as a whole. So I'm not really
Okay,
concerned. If
that's
that's the one
that's-
that Graham is talking about, I'm not concerned about it that much.
Okay, super. Okay, hopefully it was that one. Great. Okay, sounds good. Awesome. That sounds great. And one thing I was like at some point, so as we've kind of been talking about Q3 ideas and things, it's like Pages is like the next big stateless, not big, it's hopefully small, but the next stateless service. I think we should just get started on that whenever we're comfortable managing the pieces. So it doesn't have to be like right now, but like also, I don't know if we necessarily have to wait for all of web to migrate. If we feel like we've got the pieces all moving along and we could move it in pre or staging, then let's get that started when we can.
Yeah, I would imagine by the time Henry comes back, we'll be either at or near completing that project, and then we could start working on Pages near at the same time, pretty much.
Yeah, cool. Sounds good. Sounds good. Great progress. Great progress.
Hey, Graham did all the work. Thank you to Graham.
Well, and you as well. So like great teamwork. So I'm loving this time zone handing off. It's working out really well. So.
It's convenient. I like this.
It's really
Things
good.
move faster this way.
They do. It's really good. Awesome. So I had a couple of discussion points. The main one is really about Q3 OKRs. I was wondering, kind of based off yesterday, should we try and do something to reduce the conflicts between auto deploys and k8s workload changes? Like, would that make it easier to work on the clusters?
Yes. I'm more concerned about auto deploys being blocked. And Graham has an idea about this, and I'm pretty sure he's got an issue logged about this as well.
I'm sure he has, yeah.
Yeah, so I remember the proposal was to try to make auto deploy specific pipelines simply not check for configuration changes when upgrading the cluster, which should be doable because right now we query our single source of truth, which is currently Chef, and our secrets to make those necessary changes. But there should be a way we could say, hey, only do this one specific change to our clusters. Graham had an idea about this. We just need to find that issue and maybe prioritize it. I think it's either in the tech debt epic, or it might be in some other epic related to Helm changes or upgrades or something to that effect.
So when we say conflicts, are we referring to the diff checkers that fails during a deployment if there's something? Yep. Yeah, okay. But I was talking with Jarv. So my question was, can't we simply use the resource group to avoid interfering deployments? I mean, if we have the resource group set on those jobs, that either is running the config change or the version bump, not both of them at the same time.
So we do use resource groups. The problem that we run into is that the diff checker might run while a configuration change may have been pushed into place. And if that happens, we block auto deploys because auto deploy saw a change that may not have been rolled out to that cluster yet because it may have been blocked because the diff job was running from auto deploy, for example. So you have a lot of competing things competing for that resource to run that job, which might slow down one or the other. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense, but in terms of how the resource group should work, they will slow down because it's designed to just allow one thing to run at the same time, but it should not block. We just delay. While here we're talking about blocking and retrying.
Well, the blocking happens because maybe that configuration change hasn't been rolled out, but because the auto deploy uses the master branch, the default branch, there may be a change committed that hasn't been yet been rolled out because something else prevented that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, we need to address that in some way, shape, or form, and I think our best option is going to be determining how to figure out how k8s workloads operates or deploys things overall, which I know Graham has ideas for.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Cool. Okay, so I'll add a comment on the OKR discussion issue, but like I'm kind of thinking like in terms of like scaling up stuff, that to me feels like it'd be a nice one to have removed, just as auto deploys are moving fast dynamic bridge jobs, like you get so much less opportunity to push these things out in between auto deploys. Like at the moment, the last, well, incidents aside, but over the last couple of weeks with Graham deploying as well, we've been hitting 5 deploys a day.
Nice.
Which is awesome. Great for like getting things out, but it's going to make it harder for you to like dodge these things basically.
And as we migrate more stuff into Kubernetes, that's only going to be more difficult. And as the infrastructure
Exactly.
team itself makes changes in configuration
That's
improvements
it.
and such, it's only going to make it worse.
So we'll have a lot less visibility of changes coming in. So yeah, okay. So then the other, so I'll add the other one, which I'm going to mention on the issue we should have a think about is chat to Java, and he was mentioning like, should we try and reduce our dependencies on Omnibus? Like specifically post-deployment migrations could be a great one, right? Following Webfleet migration, maybe that's a good time to actually try and work out, because we know that registry needs this. They don't need it yet, but they know they'll need it in the future. We don't actually have a solution for applying post-deployment migration safely on registry. And the reason I believe, I can't remember the full thing, but I believe the reason is the fact that, is it to do with the fact we can't control the order it applies, or is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, basically we need an operator and no one is working on an operator. So the ask is to re-implement the deployer in k8s workload. Because basically this is so the baseline here is that the more we remove from the deployer, we end up in a situation where basically the box that runs the migration can simply be an image running as a job on the cluster. So we schedule a job and say, could you please run regular migration? Then we kick in the Helm upgrade. And then when it's done, we run another job, which is running post-deployment migration, which sounds like re-implementing deployer in k8s workload. And the reason being is that because we need an orchestrator, which usually is what an operator is made for, but we don't have one.
We should look, or maybe we should talk to distribution, because they're working on refreshing the operator specifically for OpenShift installs. And there should be no reason why that can't work in a standard Kubernetes cluster. So I wonder if there's some work that they're doing there that we could probably invest some time in to bring it over here and take it .com. I don't know anything about it though.
Yeah, we were discussing this since at least more than 1 year, I think. And yeah, I mean, if it's not a priority for them, for us, it's easier to just do the workaround instead of building a full-fledged operator.
So I know they are working on it. I'll check in with them on timelines, but yeah, that is an interesting one.
But then we also have multi-clusters and things like that. So I'm afraid it may not be enough. So we need something that is very specific to our use case.
Yes. Okay, well, that's a good one that we should at least explore, like whether that's an option. I mean, I guess that could be a solution, right? Somehow we need to find a solution for post-deployment migrations and perhaps assets as well. And an operator of some variety, I guess, is going to be needed, right?
Well, assets, I don't think is involved here, because that's all front-end work that we send to our CDN. So that will I don't see that changing in any way, shape, or form, really. Or do we depend on the Omnibus package for those assets?
I think we do. Or there's some weird dependency where something waits for the other packages. I don't remember the details, but there's something like this happening.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So
but
that one. Yeah, go ahead.
No, but theoretically, if we figure out how to do post-deploy migrations, we should be able to put pre-deploy migrations into the same like style potentially. And then we could almost start removing a lot of awkwardness in deploy and removing a lot of Ansible. And that sounds exciting to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is not hard, right? It's just, I mean, you're changing the Ansible job with a Kubernetes job. You just schedule the job to run, and then we need 2 images. I think the images are already there because the Helm chart is using those images. So it's just a matter of providing the environment variable for, say, skip post-deployment migration, run post-deployment migration. So it's simple. It's more that even when we talk about operators is it's a cluster concept. So within a cluster, you may have an operator, but we have a multi-cluster deployment. So this is why it doesn't really fit there, right? So either we have something that is external and kind of orchestrate everything, and this can be k8s workload. I mean, it's just that, I mean, it sounds like we are removing complexity from one piece and adding it to another one, because I mean, deployer is complex, but Ansible is quite simple to understand what is happening. And k8s workload, or even Tanka deployments. So depending on what you are deploying, and we have plenty of configuration options. Then you have JSONnet that you were mentioning at the beginning, which another set of, yeah, I'm not saying anything about JSONnet. Is yeah. It reminds me of the time when I was working on XLTS transformation. So it's kind of, yeah, let me stop here. So the thing is that it does something which is important. It just gives an edge on not writing tons and tons in YAML, but it comes with a cost. So if we move away from omnibus packages, we will increase our velocity in terms of how much it takes for deploying something, because we will remove 1 hour of building images and things like that. And on top of that, we may also have something interesting to explore here, which is decoupling Gitali and the Rails deployments. So there are tons of opportunities, but it doesn't really sound that we are going to something which is streamlining the process in any way. We're just just removing a custom tool for building a new custom tool, which may or may not, maybe easier, it may be faster to run, but not necessarily easier to implement, understand, and work on.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And as long as we've got Omnibus installed somewhere, such as Gitali or Prefect, like we're still gonna be waiting on Omnibus anyways. So it may just be a situation where it may not be worth investing the time to look into this until we get everything into Kubernetes potentially. It's a balance.
Yeah, I mean, the point is that if we know that there is no Gitali change, let me rephrase. If we know that there is no Gitali API change, which means that it can run with the old Gitali version, we can completely decouple things. And so we run migrations in Kubernetes, Kubernetes deployment, post-deployment migration in Kubernetes as a deployment. And then when the omnibus package is ready, we roll out Gitali independently. But right now, we can't do this because we have the migrations happening on VMs. So we need the omnibus packages just for kickstarting the process. So in that sense, we can get a great improvement.
Yeah, as soon as we complete the web and web pages, and if the Sidekick nodes are gone, the virtual machines are gone, we could definitely start looking to figure out what we want to do.
For tackling the post-deployment migration piece, do you mean?
Yeah.
Or yeah.
Because then we could potentially rid of the deployment VM entirely too, because that's just a VM that sits idle until we deploy to it.
Yeah, maybe something we can do in the meantime for experimenting on this to validate the approach is that we remove post-deployment migration from deployer and we put them in k8s workload. So that we still have this, we still wait for omnibus packages, and so we just run the deployment with the same steps that we are doing today, but we validate our ability to run post-deployment migration using a Kubernetes job, just switching the job because at that point in time, we have both VMs and Kubernetes images. So we can try if it works, and then in theory should be running the regular migration would be just flipping out an environment variable.
We'll feature flag it so we don't block auto deploys.
No, I mean the environment variable in the pod, because the pod reacts to the environment variable for running or not running post-deployment migration.
If that's a global variable, that might be a little difficult, though. We'll figure it out. Implementation detail.
Yeah, certainly. Okay, cool. Yeah, that sounds interesting. So we know at some point we're going to need to solve this for registry. We didn't have a solution, but it's not a. I thought that was a piglet. I was like, why Scarlett got a small piglet? That's how you hold pigs, isn't it? Not only cats. Yeah, we know we'll need to solve this for registry. We don't have a good way right now. And I think that the concerns raised were around the rollback if it fails or the order of things. So we can certainly work out details, but that sounds like it could be a good thing to explore.
Add it to the list.
Yeah, for sure. I'll add a comment onto the issue so we can discuss that. Cool. And then, is there any other stuff anyone wants to talk about on OKRs?
Not about OKRs, no.
Cool. All right. And then just to find out, I was going to say on 5 on it was really interesting graph scale back on the GitLab shell memory leak. Should we ping the team and get some developers to take a look at that? Like, I'm assuming that's not really just an infra thing.
So there's 2 reasons why I did not raise an issue. I actually started writing an issue, but I didn't submit it. One, I see memory like sitting over 1 gigabyte, which does not make sense to me. And I want to figure out why. Because Kubernetes, when you exceed that 1 gigabyte limit, it should be killing those pods. So that in itself is strange. So I wonder if there's something wrong with how I'm querying the data or something. The second reason why I did not raise this issue is because I know at some point in time, I don't know the timeline, GitLab shell is supposed to be changing out how that service runs. So instead of it being like the SSH daemon that calls out to a binary, GitLab shell itself is supposed to be the SSH daemon that's listening for a request, which that's an entirely different way of running the GitLab shell process entirely. So I just figured this is probably not worth my time investigating, and instead we'll just let GitLab shell do their thing. I don't know what the timeline is for whenever GitLab shell is introducing their new process binary into the things at all. So
I'd suggest once you get to the point where you're reasonably confident that data is right, I'd suggest just ping them on it, and you can literally pretty much just say that, right? Like, hey, I know you're working on this stuff. Just here's visibility of how things look, and then I think they can work out the timeline and does it make sense to fix, or are they just migrating? So I think just get the data to be where you feel confident it's accurate, and then we can ping them.
I'm also not heavily concerned about this because I don't see any bad things happening inside of Kubernetes. Like, it's not killing these pods. And I have not seen people complaining about the GitLab SSH unless there's another incident. I'm not hearing people complain about SSH being problematic. So it's probably something worth looking into long term. But yeah, I'll keep investigating this on the off chance. But I'm not focusing all my effort on it right now.
Yeah, no, I think that makes total sense. If I understood from Henry, if I understood correctly, like it was the sidekick tuning that was causing the most kind of pain for engineers on call, and the other two, registry and GitLab shell, were just ones he saw in amongst the metrics, like their dashboards.
So the registry one, I think I closed the registry one this morning, and the GitLab shell, I'm actively working on it. I plan to actually close that issue hopefully today if things go well.
Super, great work.
So
ahead.
I have a question, Skarbek, about the GitLab shell memory usage. So my question is, how do we schedule those pods? So are they long running and they just get routed requests, or they kind of serve a number of requests and then they kind of get killed because of the HPA just expanding and contracting the fleet?
It's just the HPA and deployments that determines when a pod dies.
But a pod can serve more than one request?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like in this particular case, we're just using the SSH daemon, and I forget the exact configuration, but like it theoretically, each daemon will handle upwards of 200 requests before it starts denying clients. It's either 200 or 400.
Yeah.
I don't know how many clients they actually serve because the SSH daemon has no metrics in any way, shape, or form. I'd have to figure out how we could query data like that in a different fashion.
So I was looking at the individual graphs that you linked instead of just because the trending is obviously this is monotonically increasing. So it sounds like there's a memory leak. But on the other hand, what I was thinking is that you have a Go daemon, because I know the shell thing was written in Go, right? So you have something that is kind of streaming data, so from one direction to the other one. So we're talking about clone pushes, so data intensive operation. So the way this things works, very likely have a in-memory buffer that is kind of moving information from one direction to the other one. So I was thinking that because most of those things have a very short-lived metrics. So if you just click on some of them, they kind of very tiny. So I was wondering if we see it monotonically increasing because we have peak, then we spawn a pod, it starts serving, then the memory gets used, and then basically he's done, it gets killed. So we never see the memory being reclaimed back.
Yeah.
This was because otherwise I'm kind of expecting people having more problems with this if they're getting out of memories on virtual machines and things like that, right?
Yeah.
The
problem that I see with your theory is that the way the SSH daemon works today is that it calls out to a binary, and that binary should only last as long as that request does. So once that request is done with, that binary ends its process. The next request will come in and spin up the same binary for that new request. So this makes me think that either it's SSH that's running the system out of memory, or these Go binaries are using some RAM, and for some reason they're not reclaiming that RAM after the binary has been closed.
Yeah. That's the problem with recording rules, that you don't see what we are looking at. You just have this weird name, and maybe we are just looking at the Go allocated memory and not the SSH. Yeah. And then but yeah,
it'd be helpful if the SSH daemon had Prometheus metrics, but SSH has been around too long to know about Prometheus, so unfortunate. But that's part of the reason why.
But node exporter can be tuned. The node exporter can be tuned for looking for a specific process. So we can pack the container with the regular node exporter from Prometheus, telling it just we want information about the process with this name.
I wonder if we can control that because this is coming from our GKE nodes, and I'd have to invest. I'd have to look into that.
No, I'm talking about the not the node exporter, the host exporter. Sorry, the one that you can install on your machine. So that runs on Linux and collect a set of metrics. And I'm quite sure, that you can just say, I want detailed information about process with this speed or this name or this path or whatever, and they will get added to the exported thing.
That would be something we would need to invest some time in with the Prometheus deployment, because that's where, or that's how we currently employ that. So that might be worth exploring. I'll think about that. I'll create an issue later today.
Awesome. Cool. Is there anything else that we want to go through?
I have not something I really want to go through. It's more of just a question. I had a one-on-one with Marin earlier today, and I was discussing, what kind of stuff we want to see in the future. And we see that Gitaly is currently in discussion, but I already know that Gitaly is not going to be ready to be migrated to Kubernetes just due to the current state of how it works right now inside of our Helm chart. Marin brought up Prefect. Prefect is a stateless service. It's backed by a database. It's currently in alpha state with our Helm chart. What if we, instead of focusing our time and effort on Gitly, focused our time and effort on Prefect? I don't know enough about Prefect to provide an opinion about this, but I feel like if it is a stateless service, we could spin up, and I don't know what the expectation of Prefect deployments are supposed to be, but theoretically, if it's stateless, like there should be no problem with moving it over to Kubernetes. And then it is now the backing store for Gitly, which sends its data to a virtual machine. But later we could then start spinning up Gitly pods. And then so long as Prefect is working as it's supposed to be, it doesn't matter how we've deployed Gitly, whether it's just one or two pods that are sitting behind it. But as long as the replication is working, we should be able to have a seamless deploy with that.
It's definitely a good option. Yeah.
I need to learn more.
I mean,
because
it's
I don't know
something
enough
which might be worth us just trying to test somewhere. Like, where could we spin up Prefect in Kubernetes and actually be confident that we can, like, we want to do some deploys, we want to see scaling, we want to check logging and those sorts of things. If we can work that out, then I think it would be a great one. Like, I'm almost at the stage where actually I wonder if we've got lots of kind of options. People are talking about, like, should we do something with Redis? Should we do something with like console, HA proxy? Like, they're almost all the pieces which we should probably just test somewhere and see what works, what doesn't work, and what would be involved.
In the past, we have used staging for this because the way that projects are routed to a specific storage provider, we can just deploy something and just route one or two projects that we start testing manually with them, and then we can just extend this to QA or things like that.
Yeah, the problem I have with that is that sometimes people don't tear down their tests when they're done and they're not moving forward. So we still have a CFS file node that doesn't get used.
Like, if we started this, I mean, it is a bit of an interesting one around deployments, but it's something which, like, if we handle within delivery, we could manage that conflict and set up and tear down. Yep. Do you want to, like, should we try and do a test on Prefect and see if it works?
So I asked the question on the Gitly conversation issue, whatever issue that was. Great. So you might have seen this already. I'm wondering if there's another issue already about Prefect and its stability within Kubernetes, because I feel like that would be a better issue to start prioritizing.
I'm not aware that it is, because we created the Gitly one just the other month when we started talking about Gitly.
Okay.
So I'm not aware of a Prefect one, no. But it would be a great one to get discussion, because I know Jason and perhaps other people in distribution have thoughts on Prefect, and I know Andrew's mentioned it before that it might be a great time to migrate it before it actually gets tons of users. So
I also plan on having a one-on-one with ZJ just to learn a little bit more and figure out what priorities are kind of in his mind.
Great. Yeah, that'd be super good.
Yeah, I'm not going to spin up an issue yet because I need to learn more. But yeah, if we can make that decision, I'm happy to test this out.
Super. Yeah, I'd love that. Like, I mean, we're definitely at the stage where I think there's lots of pieces we want to get into Kubernetes, but none of them are going to be quite as straightforward and obvious as like the web fleet, where it's sort of just there and ready. So yeah, I think we probably need to plan some tests and see what we can pick over.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting one because that's a service that's not very well known.
Yeah,
and I think Kubernetes sounds like a natural place to put Prefect because you need to run multiple versions of them, not versions, but multiple pods at the same time for redundancy. And because it's stateless, we don't have to worry about disk storage. It's just a matter of deploying the actual image. It feels like a no-brainer, but we need to learn more. Let's learn.
Yeah, it's more interesting the upgrade procedure, how the rollout will affect it, and but yeah, I mean, it will be more or less the same things that happen on VMs. So
yeah, for sure, yeah. Cool. Well, yeah, absolutely. Please go ahead and like start digging on that. Let's see if we can get that into something where we could test it and see what it looks like. Fantastic. Cool. Great. Is there anything else anyone wants to bring up today?
I have something unrelated to Kubernetes I would like to address real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
Alessio, your background. I'm disappointed that the Earth is shifted so that your head is covering Italy, which is where you live.
Yeah, that does seem a bit of a flaw.
I think
like...
when these are created, the backgrounds need to be shifted such that the center is not where you live.
I mean, it feels like that, like the pin that actually says Florence, Italy, should be at least vaguely close to Italy.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's in
so
Hawaii
you
right
should
now.
open an issue on the corporate marketing tracker, because this came from a slide deck in corporate marketing where you can change things and then you export the background. So yeah, contributions are welcome.
I guess for Ruben, you kind of see the west coast of India, so it might work for him. But like, still, I would still like to see it moved over. Even for Ruben, I would still want to see it moved over a little bit, just so you could see more of it. But minor complaint.
While you're suggesting, might as well suggest that they highlight the age, maybe.
Yeah.
It's a great suggestion.
Maybe color in some of the dots too, or something. I don't know.
Please ping me, well, don't ping me directly, but please share the link when you leave that comment, Scabeck, so that we can all enjoy the response. I think you literally just get the contributions are welcome, right? Like, let's be honest.
Exactly. I don't know how to make the background move. I don't know how to do that.
I think you can record the movie and just have it as a virtual background. So you can have a video clip, and so in that case it can move. Because what is this one, or what? There's some of the default one. Yeah, this one is moving. So what it is? This one is moving.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that works
is
on
that
OS
the campsite?
X, but I'm poor Linux over here.
Oh, well, that's your choice.
Yeah.
Don't blame us.
I don't get all these fun features.
Oh yeah, that's something I've been suffering with as well. So none of the backgrounds work for you, right?
Let's see. If I recall, it's just the moving ones. I could still do a virtual background.
Oh, I mean,
like, I just don't have any of the videos.
Even the static ones don't work for me.
So that's really unlucky. This is like 3 iterations of backgrounds that we're seeing. Alessio's got the 3rd iteration where it works, basically.
Maybe.
Awesome. So yeah, good that we've covered. I often say to people that occasionally, if you watch like these demo videos all the way to the end, you get the Easter egg. You don't always. I feel like some people feel like really cheated after an hour of watching us talk about like dashboards and things. Nothing happens. We just go away. But occasionally you get like gold.
We should prepare some props or things like that we just dress at the end of the.
Yeah.
I mean, I held up a piglet for a half second, so
I was genuinely like, why is that? Why have you got a piglet? Like, I've never seen anyone holding a cat by its legs before.
These kittens have been annoying me today. I've had to clean up dirt multiple times because they've been digging in my plant. Now they're sleeping. Anyways,
well, super chat to you all. Yeah, it's not working super well, Ruben. It's like you.
Ruben, try buying a green screen. Maybe with a green screen it will work.
Yeah, I might have to get one.
I actually like this. It's like you're wearing some sort of costume or something.
It is. Yeah, it's quite incredible. All right, well, I will. I'll see you in a few minutes for AMA.
All right.
See you soon.
See you later.
Bye.